Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds by nerds, I'm Nerdarchy Steve, and today I'm joined by Emily Rose Jacobson. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm doing pretty good for this regular Tuesday.
Yeah, regular Tuesday. I mean, I think there's something going on today, and a little something. And we're living in the apocalypse now, and everyone is just trying to live their best apocalypse life ever. So, uh, how is your apocalypse going?
My apocalypse is going pretty okay. I'm fortunate enough to have been able to. I'm one of the very fortunate people who, if you work in social media, luckily your job is mostly online. So I've been able to keep with that for the majority of this time. However, it has cut deeply into my game time, which I'm very, very sad about.
Oh no. Well, you can like sneak into social media while you're gaming. No one will know.
I will
I won't
try.
tell.
Won't tell
So
Heroforge.
speaking of cutting into your gaming, so during these times you find yourself gaming, more or less or the same. It sounds like a little less.
Definitely a little less. I mean, I'm part of a tabletop RPG Mass Effect podcast called Mass Effect Adventum. We've almost been going for about 2 years now. And so, luckily, that is a thing where we are able to meet on Zoom and do our sessions. And for the most part, that's been very much a saving grace during this time is just being able to see, having that regularity, being able to see my friends, being able to do that campaign. There was a time where for like a month we just didn't do anything because I think it was right around like that May June area where we all just got Zoom burnout like
Yeah.
really really hard. But then that made the next games that much more like, oh, this is okay. No, this does feel good to like be together. Like we're having fun. This is really really something like we all look forward to. So it's right now it's balancing Zoom burnout with like how many episodes can we record a month? But
Yeah.
that's been very much my saving grace during this time.
So, you're doing actual play podcast. You're also the community manager for Heroforge, which we're big fans of Heroforge and have been partners with you guys for a little while now. I mean, and I think Ted might have stock in the company. I'm not entirely sure. I mean, like him and his kids are always on the website making minis, and Ted has bought so many minis from Hero Forge. And now I love the color Hero Forge
Oh my
because I am
gosh.
not a painter, and I was so happy in third edition when they came out with pre-painted minis, and now I can actually make a customized mini and color it, and basically have it table ready. So to me, that's like amazing.
It's insane. This was in the talks for a while, and as soon as we got the demos of what this tech looked like, it was just very much this like moment of, oh, we can do this. Oh, dang. Oh my gosh. Like it was a really, really cool day seeing those first seeing demos of like, okay, this is what we can work with. This can be done. Kind of situation. That was such a cool day. I know. I'm like, I always if I'm not working, I'm always spending my time on the site, just painting my own minis, making my own designs, using the advanced posing. I love that too and giving like slight just editing minis to a slight detail where it's like, oh, I gave this mini a little bit more personality just by the way their head is cocked or like the way their arms are a little bit closer to their body.
So when you run games, and I don't know if you're allowed to answer this one freely. Do you have you always preferred minis and terrain, theater of the mind?
I've always been theater of the mind since the majority of the shows I have been for like Twitch channels. We've mainly done theater of the mind, but I personally actually my first D&D game ever was I had a mini because my DM in college who is now a writer for Wizards of the Coast, he brought this box and just said, "All right, pick one." And I remember that day I was so excited because it was such a fun session, but I was so frustrated because I was like, well, this kind of looks like my character, but it
Yeah.
doesn't look like my character like fully. And it was like, even though I was just jumping into D&D for the first time, I remember that feeling like so specifically because I was like, I just want to see my character and how I envision them represented like on this table.
I feel
I
like
like to
that
make
is
minis though and just have them in my house and stuff now.
well, I feel like that's kind of fairly common anyway. Like that's a shared experience that we've all had. Is like going to the table and looking at the box of minis and trying to figure out the one that almost kind of looks like your character.
I'm like, well,
It's,
she looks close. She doesn't have the weapons, but okay.
and and now with Heroforge, you can pretty much make exactly what you want, and you guys are always adding new things, whether it's doodads, races or whatever.
Yeah, today we have probably one of our biggest releases of the fall of quarter. Are we close in quarter three? No, we're in quarter four now. Quarter
Yeah.
four, yeah. Aliens, and then we have our arm options. So you can add multiple arms, you can remove arms, and we've also introduced prosthetics, which is really something we've been working towards.
Oh, nice. So today is aliens. Like that seems like a fairly broad topic.
So yeah, so it's aliens.
Category.
We're offering 4 different alien heads that you can choose from, in addition to like various kind of like additional features and like in the horn slot and whatnot. And then we have, if you go to the body torso page, you can find our multiple limbs options, so or multiple arms options. So you can choose from like 2 arms, 4 arms, or 6 arms, and then you can go into details with each of those arms. If like one has a hook hand, or if one is a full robot arm, if one has a transradial amputation, you name it. Our team really took the time to really flesh out this this arm release.
Yeah.
And it's really cool.
So now you guys are fully armed over there.
We're fully armed at the forge.
Nice. So so the games that you're in that are streamed, are you usually a player or GM? Both.
I'm both. I definitely started off as a player, and then at that time I was producing a live improv show in Los Angeles called the Oregon Trail Uncharted, which was essentially improv meets the Oregon Trail video game, in which I had made this role of the wagon master, and so I was helping like direct the game, and I would pause the show so we could spin a wheel that simulated the chance of the Oregon Trail. So it had like broken wagon wheel, found wild fruit, dysentery, cholera, snake bite, gunshot wound. And so I would essentially GM the show, but I didn't know I was GMing the show. I was like, oh, I'm just like the wagon master. I'm like the narrator of the show, until one of my friends, she pulled me aside because her group was looking to do possibly a D&D podcast. And she said, we want you to be our GM. And I said, our DM. And I said, why? Like, I've done it only a little bit, but why me? They're like, you GM in the show you're doing, the show you produce. You're literally the wagon master. You subconsciously put that into your name. You are a master of storytelling in that show. So I was a player during that time. And then Hyper RPG approached me because they were working with Curtis Weeb of the Rat Queens comics, and they had said that he wanted to do an RPG based off the comics. And so at that point in time, I knew a female improv group in Los Angeles called Ripley Improv, and so we pulled a lot of the women from there, and I also casted other women in the project, and that's how it came to be. So I've mainly become I got the nickname of GMily from like that show and that experience, and so I love being a player, but I also do love being a GM. I feel like it's very 50-50 for me, because as a player, I get to really have fun and dive into like character and their wants and their needs. And as a GM, I can be like, this is my world, and here's all the detail I put into it that you're all going to ignore because you just want to go over there into that corner.
So I kind of feel the same way. Like when I'm GMing, I tend to want to play, and when I'm playing, I tend to want to GM. So I always want whatever I don't have at the moment. Ted has a question for you. Does multiple arms make the mini extra large?
Yes. So yeah, 4 arms and 6 arms do make the mini XL, and this is simply because it expands past our standard bounding box. So it costs a little bit more material, and it kind of exceeds past the program, which is why it's categorized as XL.
So if you go 4 arms, you just might as well go 6.
Yeah, I mean, go big or go home.
That's right. Is 6 the maximum?
So right now, yes, 6 is the maximum. However, if you ever want to see more arms added or different options added, we have a user request wish list, which is at heroforge.com/requests. And that's where our team sees all of our requests and prioritizes them based on like the volume of requests.
So were you a fan of Rat Queens before you started working on it?
I had definitely seen panels on Tumblr. I knew
Mhm.
the comic. I had not fully read it, and because I also seen cosplayers at conventions like at Comic Con and whatnot. And so as soon as I started reading that comic, I was like, oh, I know exactly like everything I throw at. The biggest key element of this is that for these women, this is their found family. It's all about family, and it's all about how family is what you make it, and that they have each other no matter what. They'll definitely squabble and there'll be disagreements like every family has. But for them, like that to me was the core thing when reading Rat Queen. So I was like, great, what can I do to challenge that idea in our campaign?
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with raccoons. Like, I know what it is. I've seen the panels the same, and it's cool. I do like the fact that their female dwarf has a beard.
Yes.
I, here at Nerdarchy, I think we are pro bearded female dwarves. So, well, you know why? Because I think because culturally, it's like one of the few things in the game that actually makes it different from the real world. Like everything is like they trying to emulate the real world, but it's a fantasy world. So that really kind of has been a standout for me as
Yeah,
being
Violet is
different.
fun because she's a hipster dwarf and that she does shave her beard at first,
Yeah,
and that's like unheard of for her family. But then
the
yeah,
shame.
later throughout the comics, well, she's like, I don't drink beer, I drink wine.
uh,
I don't have a beard. But later on in the comics, she does periodically kind of grow it back and shave it off. It depends on which arc we're in.
yeah, nice. So, what has been one of your favorite games to run? What's it like to play in these IPs in these playgrounds?
Yes. I really, really liked, oh gosh, I really, really liked Artalisorian's The Witcher's campaign. Their book is really, really big. It's very extensive, but they also have an easy mode available. And for streaming, like you gotta communicate a story in under 3 hours. So we
Yeah,
definitely relied on easy mode just to get us like, because we had 5 people playing, so just to make sure combat was really, really fluid and moving. But that was such a, because I'm a huge fan of the games. I loved the the Netflix show. And so getting to play in that space with people who were also fans of it was super duper fun. And it was a really, really neat system with like balancing magic and health and cost points and whatever.
yeah. I mean, I came to that fandom through the Netflix series. Probably like a lot of people, I don't play many video games, and I had not read any of the source material, and we really enjoyed it. It's such a fun world. Any I recommend any company nowadays, if you're making a game, you need a this is the game that you want to make, and then you need the stream version. If you're going to use that. Maximum Apocalypse RPG had approached us and worked with us a little bit, and they wanted us to stream a game of it. And I was like, well, you should really consider do a streamlined version so that when you're streaming it, like you don't want to be explaining rules in the stream. You want people to see people playing your game and having fun, not discussing rules and looking things up.
Oh yeah, I think easy modes are great for, yeah, streaming, and too if you have a group that very much is interested in going in story wise. If you have a group that's like very much we want to explore like the story in the world and really play in that space, then like I feel the easy modes or just condensed versions of rules are so helpful for that in that they facilitate richer, deeper, more kind of intimate storytelling.
Plus, I just find as I get older, the less patience I have for really crunchy, rules heavy games. And I just want to get in and be able to play. I want to have it be something where we could jump in and start playing it once you have a character. And during play, you can kind of learn the game.
Mhm.
But I mean, that's just my personal opinion. Your mileage will vary. So, what kind of stories do you like telling?
I love telling. I For me as a GM, whenever I start a campaign, I always have my players send me kind of what does your character want? Like it's to find my father or to get a bunch of money. And then what does their core want? So that very much like their surface level wants, which is like I want to become famous or I want to go slay this dragon. That's great. That's a good want to have because that's going to propel the story. But underneath that, like, what is your character's like core want? Like, I need this from this person. I need forgiveness or I need love from this person. And I'm going to get that by completing this other want. So I have them send me that information because with that, that's how I craft the story. Because I come from a really, really strong improv background. So I bring in a lot of improvised storytelling, long form improv storytelling aspects into my GMing and gameplay. So especially when I know a character and I know what they want and I know exactly what they're fighting for, I can either help them or hinder them in a campaign. So I can build challenges that will not only challenge them physically, but will challenge their morals or challenge their wants. Or I know in a moment how to reward them. Like, oh, you actually find a tidbit of information about your long lost sister that you are looking for. And it's that moment at the table where someone's like, oh, yes, like to me, it's so much more valuable than just like, here's a bunch of gold in a one shot. Cause it's like, they'll never spend the gold. It's a one shot.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you can give them a really cool character moment, or if you can give them something that it's based off of what they see as their character, I feel like that's very much where I come from, is like a very storytelling, improv kind of give and take place.
So when you run your sessions, do you do a lot of prep or do you rely on the improv background?
It's definitely a mixture of both. Especially for streaming, usually I will kind of have an idea of where I think the episode will go. And so I definitely have a full written out intro where I like set up the scene, I describe the location, or I describe the current situation. I bring in kind of like a previously on, mentioning big significant events that have happened in the campaign so far. That way we can catch everybody up. And then I love to have written an ending, because as much as I am really, really great and fly on my feet, I've improvised whole sessions before just out of nothing, and it was very fun and very challenging. But especially for campaigns where I really want them to have like a solid landing, I like to write out an ending, or at least an idea of what I want the ending to be. That way I can get those really, really nice words in there, if that makes sense. Other times, I think it also too depends on your party. If you have
Yeah.
a group of people that you know is just going to be like, you're in this town and they're like, we're going to go to the bar and we're going to challenge this dude to a fight for no reason. You kind of have to be like, well, here's all these other NPCs that I guess I'll put on the side burner in case of emergency break glass. Because it seems like y'all want to go off and do whatever you want to do, which I love. And so I think it's very much a place of who is your party? Do you need more improv to navigate those players, or do you need a little bit more structure to navigate those players?
You make a great point there because I tend to be more improv myself, and that just comes from like years of being a prep heavy GM, and then having my players go completely off the rails and do whatever, and I'm like, why am I writing this stuff? We'll just see what happens when we show up, and then also having players that you show up to the table and the players just don't really do anything without prodding them, so you need to poke them with a stick.
Mm-hmm.
So you make a great point, and you need to know: do you need the stick, or do you just need to follow them around?
Yes.
Which both works. I mean, I prefer the players where you don't have to do anything; you just show up, and they're just going to make the stuff happen no matter what. I think those are the most fun games for me, anyway. I've definitely had sessions where I didn't even feel like I was necessary as the GM.
Oh gosh.
It's like I could just show up, start the game, and you guys will start doing stuff, and I can leave and come back, and you'll still be doing whatever you were doing. It's definitely been definitely been some fun moments like that. So, what advice? Like you mentioned to me earlier before we got started that you did a panel on working with other people's IP and turning them in RPGs. So what are some of the bullet points to doing that and making that work?
I think it definitely is like the idea of, if you run a campaign in an IP, say you love Star Wars and you really, really want to run a Star Wars campaign, it, like, in a very positive way, I say this, it will never be Star Wars, because anytime something tries to replicate something, it is not that thing. It is a replication of it. So it can try and be its best, and you can try your best to replicate it, but take that pressure off yourself. Like, how awesome. It's not, you don't have the pressure of being Star Wars. It's your Star Wars. So I think too, when you approach it, it's very much like, once again, who are you playing with? Are you playing with folks who really want to dive into kind of the Empire side of things, or people who really want to go into like we have this new the Old Republic kind of world that's now opening up where it's like the golden age of the Jedi that's like Wild West, which I'm really excited about discovering. And seeing what do your players want to do. Are they really, really wanting to dive into this world really heavy? Or do they just want to go blast and cut off a bunch of stormtroopers? I think knowing that will help you kind of build a world. So you'll have to know, oh, I'm going to put in these. If you have like a very story heavy based group, I'm going to put these nods to these other films, or I'm going to put these nods to like these worlds. Oh, here comes, you're going to pass this character in the hallway. That was from one of the books. Like, and it's leaving those kind of Easter eggs for your party. Or you can literally be like, you're going to go fight Darth Vader now, and he's going to destroy you, but you're going to die in a glorious battle. I think it's all about just kind of navigating your players' expectations, and then also, yeah, taking that pressure off yourself, and that this is your version of this world. How special, how awesome. You can do whatever you want in it, and it totally is fine. There's nobody who's written the wiki on your world that says it has to follow like this. You get to do whatever you want. And so relish and celebrate that power.
Yeah, I almost feel like you need a disclaimer when you start that this might be, kind of an alternate reality version of, X.
Yeah.
And again, if you're just doing it for fun with your friends, it doesn't matter so much. The group can kind of navigate and negotiate that. But you've done it on stream several times now,
Yes.
and actual plays, which that to me seems way more nerve wracking because, you and your group may have decided certain things would be fine with it, but then you're also putting it out there as content for an audience. How's that experience been?
It's definitely nerve-wracking. I know for the Rat Queens, when first talking with Curtis, I'm like, all right, I'm emailing him like, oh gosh, he's gonna give me like, hey, just make sure like you do this, don't do this. Maybe we can play around in this space. I'm like, great. He's gonna give me some guidelines. Curtis is an amazing human being and basically was like, it's yours to have. Here's the sandbox. Go play in it. Bye. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So there was that. That was definitely nerve wracking. But I feel like, especially in setting up that, there was already so many different arcs of the Rat Queens. There was like, at that point in time in the comics, there was kind of these two alternative universes, one from the original comics and one from the soft reboot. So I played with that idea. I said, great. So this is the third offshoot. So this is the third kind of alt universe where like things have happened from the first set of comics up to a certain point. And then from there, we will expand and explore what happens. So getting to play with that, the audience was like, oh my gosh, I love this. And I was able to bring in characters from the comics. And I was able to, I think for Curtis, there's a lot of inside jokes with Lord of the Rings. It's basically like, it parodies D&D sometimes, and it parodies like Lord of the Rings. Like the one of us, like a curse that people say under their breath in that world is Bilford Boggin, who was this who was this smidgen, which is their term for like hobbit, who saved the world and was the big cool guy. And so I basically played with, well, what if the Rat Queens slowly was taking out the Fellowship of the Ring before the Fellowship of the Ring happened? So they accidentally, in all of these kind of small chapters, they were accidentally killing, because I knew they were going to be chaotic. I was like, this is a chaotic group of players. I'm going to use that to my advantage in that they are accidentally going to be ending the world themselves, whether they know it or not. So they would accidentally, in all these big moments, they'd accidentally get one of the members of the Fellowship killed, until the end where they had to realize they had to take on the roles themselves and save the world. So that was kind of like what I played with, and just kind of giving a nod to Curtis too, because he loved that world and he was playing with it. He's playing with Lord of the Rings in Rat Queens. So I said, well, I'm gonna take this thing that he did with his comics and also play on it as well.
So, I have a question. Where does the name Rat Queens come from?
Yes. So so there is a section, I believe, in the first comic. I have them all in the big anthology books, so I don't really know how they break up specifically. But it came from when Violet was in a fighting competition. So the whole Violet's whole backstory is that she wants to be this fighter, she wants to be this warrior, but because she comes from a very high up dwarven household, that's not her career path. Her brother gets to be the fighter. She has to model her dad's armor for all the other head dwarven heads, and he's like one of the biggest smiths in their world. And so she is very much rebellious and like, no, I want to get out and fight. So there's one part where she is attending essentially kind of like a joust, like a very a fighting celebration, and there is a fighter there who is heralded by a rat. And so the fighter wins, and they take off their helmet, and it's revealed to be, yeah, a dwarven woman with really short hair and no beard. And so Violet goes up to her after the fight and is like, why are you like, who are you like, you're not one of any of the families, you have your own herald, which is this rat. And I believe she says like, rats are the herald of change, they're the herald of plague, they are there to know that something is about to go down. And so that's kind of where that comes from, is that they are the queens of chaos, in that as soon as you see them come around, you know something bad or good is going to follow.
Something's going to change.
Something's going to change. Something's
Yeah.
going to happen, big or small.
That's awesome. So of the IPs you've played in, which has been your favorite?
Ooh, I am really loving Mass Effect right now. I'm a player in that. Our GM he's fantastic, and I've always loved those games. I played Commander Shepard in a live action improv fight choreography show in Los Angeles for about a year and a half. So I love that series to pieces. And he has taken so much care to really basically kind of bring the world to us, really challenge us as players, and also give kind of like, all right, this is what's happening in this video game at the same time. And we're like, oh my gosh, yeah. In the system, it's not there's no official system. So while Dragon Age does have an official system, and I really want to get those books because I love BioWare and their titles.
Yeah.
If it's not obvious already, Dragon Age has an official published rule and RPG system. Mass Effect does not. We are just going off of the Mass Effect D20 system, which was a fan-made system, which has these huge, extensive PDFs that you can find online. It's insane. There is no romance option though in that system, which is like, that's Mass Effect. So we have to improvise it as we go. But it's a very like, I find D&D crunchy. I don't find this one as crunchy, even though they are the same like D20 system. I don't know why. I think it's because there's not as much magic in Mass Effect, so it's a lot more of like, okay, your weapon, roll to see if your weapon hits. Great, it's going to do this times damage, which I think is like magic kind of. The spell slots, it's different. It's science. But that's the one I'm really having a lot of fun with, is just because we also play music. I think music is so crucial with RPGs. I think music can really set a tone. You can really kind of communicate to your players where things are going tonally wise, story wise with music. And our team is amazing. These amazing creators. We've used Mass Effect music, but now we are going on. 2 members of our team are going on to compose music for our podcast, so that it is owned by us, and that it really fits kind of the world that we're in. It's insane.
Oh, that's really cool. Have people that are able to do that for you on team. So you mentioned Dragon Age. Have you used the age system at all?
The age system, no.
It's fun and it's fairly easy. I mean, I'm fairly new to it. We started playing the Expanse, and it uses the same system. It's one of those weird things. Like the coolest part about it is also like the thing that kind of slows up the game, because you have that stunt die. So whenever a stunt comes up, it's like you've got all these charts with all these different stunts on, depending on what you're doing. Are you shooting with a gun? Are you in regular combat? Are you exploring? So there's like different charts for whatever. So I think what we've kind of been doing is just like, I have stunt points, I want to make up the thing. And our GM's like, sure, that works. Or that doesn't work, or this is how that can work. And instead of like having to worry about looking for, just because it's like a cool, conceptually it's cool, but it's also like a screeching halt on immersion at the same time.
Yeah. And I think for some instances, like rules like that are good because they help like facilitate really cool new story moments that maybe you wouldn't necessarily think of, like, oh my gosh, wait, this comes out of this action. What?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm very flux with, especially if my players, like, if you pitch me something good, I will definitely be a little flux with rules, just because I'm a sucker for great storytelling and cool character moments and whatnot and cool choices. because I tend to make them in my own games.
Yeah.
So if a player approaches me with something, or if they're like, actually, I want to try and do this and this and this, and there's no way how to do that in the rules, like legally, I guess,
Yeah.
correctly, I'll usually be like, okay, you can try this, but this is going to cost you this, or yeah, you can do this, but this is the consequence. So I love stuff like that. I love it when my players are creative with me, because then it's like, yeah, like this is our own thing. This is for us.
Yeah. Rules schmoles. Like when you're having fun, you can't let them get in the way. So, are you playing any non-stream games?
Whew. I was for a bit, but then the big old dragon of scheduling
Yeah.
destroyed that game. That one was based off of oh gosh, Super Troopers. And so that GM's whole idea was that people would just die, and he would just keep bringing in new people into campaign. People
Yeah.
would be like, all the bugs, all the Tyranids would just, or no, that's Warhammer. All the bugs would just keep killing us off. So that one got started, but it just got a little too tough to try and navigate a bunch of other people's schedules, and that RPGs unfortunately went to the RPG graveyard due to scheduling.
At the beginning of the lockdown and the pandemic, we started this Saturday morning group with a couple couple Twitter people and people that I know that are like in the industry, and we're gonna all be locked down. We won't have nothing better to do. We might as well get this game going. But we still have it going, but we're actually like everyone's just as busier than they were, prior to the pandemic.
It's crazy. It's
Yeah,
insane. But I mean, good for everyone staying busy doing stuff. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we definitely could use a distraction now. So, also
I gotta correct myself. It was I said Super Troopers. Sorry, it was Starship Troopers.
Starship Troopers.
Starship Troopers.
I think my brain just made the correction anyway because you said bugs.
Yeah, just anything with big fighting space bugs.
Yeah. Such a cult classic. Yeah, so I was just talking, with a couple people, like a couple different conversations where it's like the virtual con burnout seems like it might be worse than the actual con burnout, because it's like there's cons for things that there wasn't before. Everyone's doing a virtual one for their convention, and then you're just like, yeah, I guess I'll do it. I'm home. And so you end up running all these games, playing in games, and doing panels. So I feel like there's some people that are doing more than they would have had the normal con season happened.
Mm-hmm. And I think too, it has to deal with, like, I know this has been a big thing for me during this pandemic. Like, at a convention, you're able to leave the room and like go back to your hotel room, or leave the room and go to a restaurant and chill. That's your house. You can leave one room of your house, but it's still like, sometimes I will be like, oh, stressful day. Oh no, I'm still in my house. I can't leave it. I can't go somewhere else to like relax or something. I think that has to definitely be a part of it too.
So now, has you noticed like an uptick as the social media manager for Heroforge? Like is there more social media going on to manage?
Definitely. As soon as in March, all of a sudden everyone was like, now we have time. Now we have free time to be on Heroforge. So at that point in time, we also saw a huge, we'd only wrapped our Kickstarter. It had been 1 month. After that too, we saw a huge uptick in, well, now we want public color, because all of us want to use that tool now, because now we have the time. And so it's been really, really fun. I started doing these contests called Create a Hero contests, where I challenge our users to, hey, create a user based off of like this species parts that we have on our site. So we did a bear folk one, and then in honor of October, we did a skeleton one. And I love running those because everyone sends me such amazing creative designs, and I love showing them to our team, because our team goes nuts for them too. Because we're just like, oh, you guys think of how to do stuff on our site that we don't even think of how to do on our site, or like this doesn't even cross our mind. Like, we have the Heroforge Creators Guild on Facebook, and there's so many folks who have found I have not tried it myself, but there's a bug where you can get like the head to disappear if you manipulate it into the body a certain way using advanced posing. So they've done all this crazy stuff with that, and it just is like, we're always sharing those images in with our fellow team members, being like, look what they're doing with this. Like, whoa, this is crazy.
That's funny.
I love it.
So, will we be getting combat wheelchairs in the future?
Yes, I can confirm that they are in development. So it takes people. We are a very small team. We are
Uh-huh.
about 20 people, and only about 5, 6 of those are our artists and our digital artists. So the rest of us are doing a bunch of other things for the company. So it does take time, because also it just redoing seated poses takes a lot of time. We want to make sure that when we release combat wheelchairs and wheelchairs and other seated positions, we want to make sure that those positions and those options have the same amount of customization as we currently offer for all the parts on our site. So that takes a lot of kind of revamping things, redoing things, reworking things to fit new postures, new poses, and to fit new objects. So it is in development, and our team is working really, really hard on it to deliver it as soon as possible, but also to be as functional and as customizable as possible. But I've seen what's in development so far, and I'm really, really impressed with it.
Yeah, I feel like there's going to be a lot of room for a lot of fiddly bits on that.
There is, and we want to offer like various options too. We don't want to just say like we want to give sci-fi options. We want to give like Western options. We want to give. We
Yeah.
really want to. Heroforge is all about being able to create your character, and we want to keep like that is our goal. We want to keep expanding those options and giving you every possible option you can to make sure that you're able to create your character or see yourself in that game.
Will we get a spider leg option?
Possibly. If you, like I said, if you want to see it, make your
Yeah.
voice heard, put it on that request wish list. I know we did a custom model for the D20 dimensions for Erica's character. She was like she had like a whole lower spider body, and so we
Mhm.
did do a custom model for that. But when it will be publicly added to our site or offered, there's no ETA.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like you definitely need mechanical spider legs and tank treads.
Tank treads, yes. Honestly,
For
I'm
sure.
like, I was in a recently I did a Warhammer Wrath and Glory campaign where I played a Sister Hospitaller, and I loved her, and she was super fun, and I equipped her with the no fear aspect. So she was a Sister Hospitaller on the field that could not be intimidated by anybody, no Space Marine, no nothing, and just was like, death is imminent, hooray! I will die a glorious battle and become a saint. I realized on Heroforge we didn't have a nun habit. And I
Oh.
needed that when making that mini. And so I'm constantly finding things too, where it's like little things where I'm like, oh shoot, we need to add this to the list of things to add eventually.
So is that on the list or is it now there?
I need to add it. I have
Yeah.
not brought it up. I mean, I was able to manipulate one of our cowls into looking like it because
Mhm.
all the color maps are so extensive. So I was able to give it kind of the inner lining color that the Sister Hospitaller does have from that Wrath and Glory book. But yeah, I need to add my own requests to that list too.
Is there like a hijab option?
I do think there are some head wrap options. However, I know that we are working on expanding those.
Yeah.
So there are some more in development.
Yeah, when you mentioned the nun habit, that's what kind of came to mind. I was like, I wonder if that could be manipulated to kind of look like it as well. Also, I imagine like I guess there's some social things that you guys have to address as well when looking at those options.
Yeah, I know for me, I've definitely brought up, especially like we get more and more requests for many multicultural items and items that are outside of our own culture. And I think for me, it's very much like if we want to really pursue and create those items, I think it's crucial that we bring in artists who represent those cultures and we work with them to help create these parts in the best and most positive way possible. Because we don't want it to be culture as a costume. No.
Yeah,
And
makes
so
sense.
we want to make sure that everything is lined up and that, yeah, that this has the most respect and the most care put into it.
So, what's is there anything on the horizon that you can talk about?
No. We can only talk. I can only talk to you about what has come out. But
Okay.
I will say, keep your eyes peeled. We've got a bunch of stuff in development, even towards the end of 2020 and in December. We always do it every year. I believe this is the third year doing it. It's our adventure calendar, where every day we release a new part. That one is going to be huge this year. Like, there are so many amazing releases during that entire month. So yeah, keep a close eye on the site, especially in December, because it'll be new features every day, which will be like, what? So there's definitely days where you can come back after a few days and see like 5 or so new parts.
Yeah.
But we have, our art team has been working so hard nonstop to make that month really, really cool and really special.
So what I'm hearing is you should just keep your Hero Forge tab open until December's over.
Yes. Or just keep watching us on socials every day, because we will showcase like the part. And I mean, I personally love the little ghost. I think my favorite release so far has been the little ghost that we released on Halloween. I love him. He's very tiny. Ghost is my favorite. I have to incorporate Ghost now into all my minis because he's just great.
Were you involved in any Halloween games?
Halloween. I did play a 10 Candles game for Gen Con, so I will count that as a, because it was very much, we played kind of in the Friday the 13th kind of ideal for that. So it was basically what happens if all these players think there's a killer, but it's actually just how poorly the camp is run. And that's what's killing all the campers.
Oh my goodness.
Because it did not follow any safety standards. But that one was really fun because my boyfriend just has never really been into tabletop RPGs, because he gets kind of like, he does not like the number crunchiness of it all.
Yeah.
But that one, because 10 Candles is such a narrative, like, okay, what is something you want to add to the story, or what is something you want to add to the world? That one is such a collaborative narrative game that for him, and he's a huge horror fan, like he loves horror. So it was those two things married together that made him really, really excited. And so that was so much fun to sit at the table and play with him. And and my character was very antagonistic to him, and it was really, really, really fun.
The camp from Friday the 13th is here in New Jersey.
Oh yeah, we've been wanting to go up there, because I think there's like, once, from what my boyfriend told me, there's a bit, like, leave like once a year it's open for like a week or two, where you can go tour it or something. I don't know, but he wants to go do that.
Ted is also excited about the ghosts, because you can fit, apparently you can fit up to 3 of them on your mini in different colors.
You can put, it's so great. You can do it so that you can, now that we have multiple arms, I'm going to give you guys a little tutorial. So you can do it so or even tail, I don't think ghosts can be tail posed. So if you have like an arm, you could manipulate the holding ghost. You could manipulate the arm into the body so that the ghost is like hovering around you, which I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And yeah, you can put 2 ghosts on the base. You can put ghosts in your hands, ghosts for days. And he's just like, I love him. He's very, very cute. Nice little like round ghost.
Yes, Brian, Camp Crystal Lake, that is up in North Jersey. I keep meaning to make a pilgrimage out there, and I just haven't made it yet.
That'd be a super cool place to run like a 10 Candles game if you could, like at night there.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be a really, really cool experience.
I mean, sadly, I did not get any Halloween games in this year. I usually try and run something. I am playing in Curse of Strahd, but Halloween-ish.
It's a spooky game.
Yeah, but that wasn't intentional. It just happened that way. So, how do you feel about holiday games?
I think they're fun. I think one shots, I always like, I have a love-hate relationship with one shots, because they're super fun, but I always end up like really creating characters that have like in-depth stories, and I get so sad when I'm like, oh, I don't get to continue with you anymore. Same as a GM. I usually have so much fun in a one shot, and you kind of just have to encapsulate the story there, that you're like, oh well, I wish we could continue on. So, but they're fun in their aspect, but they're also really tough. Like, I know for Mass Effect, I'm gonna be GMing a little surprise session. I think we're going to release it during the holidays. Basically, the premise of my game is oops, all Krogans. So everyone will be playing a Krogan, which will be our producers of the podcast. He does the voice effects for our podcast to make it sound like the actual aliens from the game. And so that's going to be an audio cacophony of just all these people talking at once in Krogan modified voices. But I think, I don't know if I'm going to holiday theme that one. I think we're going to release it around the holidays, but I already have an idea for what I want that story to go. But it's tough. I love one shots and I hate them because they're one shots.
For people that don't know what a Krogan is, what's a Krogan? And by people, I mean me.
Krogan, if I had to break it down, Krogans are basically kind of like the orcs of the Mass Effect world. They're these kind of hulking, huge, large-shelled kind of creatures that are very tanky. They're basically built to fight. And in the Mass Effect world, they were a highly advanced society that essentially killed themselves off in a nuclear holocaust because their society got too advanced. And so the way you see them in the current Mass Effect games is them rebuilding society, and especially after there was a big war that happened, and these other alien races realized that these guys are really, really powerful. They have destroyed themselves once before, and they're multiplying at a huge crazy rate. It's really bad. So they introduced a genophage, which basically kind of stopped that race from expanding. And now part of the whole Mass Effect trilogy that you pop into is very much like these races kind of apologizing and making up for it and trying to move forward. And like this, and the Krogans trying to move forward too. Like, do we even trust anybody anymore if they're just gonna like, we definitely mess with ourselves, but now other people are messing with us. And so they're very like, oh yes, they're super modulated voice wise. And so if you can picture 5 players all talking like this and being very aggressive, that's basically what that one shot is going to be, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, if Brian has some suggestions for names, Seth
Yes.
Krogan, Hulk Krogan, Joe Krogan.
I like Joe Krogan. Oh my gosh, also Hulk Krogan is very, very good.
Yeah. So I actually, I'm mistaken. I did play in a Monster of the Week 2 shot.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. That, I think the adventure is called Pumpkin King. So I did get in some Halloween gaming after all. I played Sniffles the werewolf.
Oh.
Unfortunately, Billy is allergic to dogs. So being turned into a werewolf is like the worst fate.
I love it. I love stuff like that.
Yeah. So I don't know. It just sometimes, especially nowadays with everything going on, it just makes me want to play more ridiculous things and less serious.
Oh, yeah. Have fun. Like, create a wackadoo character. I love playing characters that contradict themselves. Like, how do I take the trope and how do I spin it on their head? A rogue that has a really happy family life and does not have a tragic past. This rogue is just like, I just like Rogan.
Yeah. Just the thing I do. Have you checked out the Monster of the Week game?
I believe I did like a year and a half ago. I think I played in a one shot for that here at Hyper, I think. And I love fun systems like that.
Yeah, it was my first with that system. And we started out with really low luck scores. And I got to find out what happens when you use all your luck.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of an old Yeller moment in the end of the game.
No.
But I like that. I mean, I like playing characters like you stole them. So, especially in a one shot, just show up with a stack of characters.
Oh yeah, just show up, have fun. That's the point.
Well, so I guess like modern gamers is a little bit different than when we first started. Like now, players are much more precious with their characters than when we like before. You're just used to your characters dying. We were traumatized a lot early on, so it wasn't a big deal.
Developed a hard shell.
Yeah. And now, especially I guess in 5e2, it's also hard to die, so that doesn't help. Even though Ted did manage to kill a character within the first couple of sessions by accident. When we started playing 5e, it was before the books had released. All the books had released, and he's like, it's just orcs. It'll be fine. They're first level, second level, whatever. And someone got critted and went down, and then failed a death save, and then someone failed to their medicine check, and then they rolled a 1 on their next death save. Yeah, it was just a series of unfortunate events.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But it's when you're the GM, you're like, yes, yes, yes. I feel like up until a certain point, and if there's just all this bad luck going for this party, you're kind of like, no, no, no. Like this is not working in my favor either.
Yeah, you're trying to pump the brakes, but you've gone too far. The brakes are gone. You're going downhill.
And
there's
people
nothing
always
left to do.
exactly, and people always laugh at GMs for whenever like, oh, I got a nat 20, and the GM is like, oh gosh darn it. But I feel
Yeah.
like that too is because there's nothing. If you think about it, there's nothing interesting in a story when someone is just able to succeed, 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 succeed. GMs are orchestrating the stories, so we love when like something bad happens because then something new happens, which is really really fun.
Yeah.
So it's like we're not like rooting for anybody's. Everyone was like, Emily, you're rooting for my demise. I'm like, no, you don't get it. I'm playing that character, but ultimately, the dice are what make the game. They bring chaos to the game. They bring change, and so it's through that where because if everyone didn't have dice and it just was like, well, I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna punch this dragon in the stomach and he's gonna barf up gold and I'm gonna get superpowers. It'd be like that's really cool and that is very overpowered. But I feel like dice kind of controls like what you can do, what you can't do, and ultimately, even if you do fail, it ultimately, if you think about it, some of the best moments are from fails or from those really crazy critical successes where like you needed it to happen because like that's how the dice help the storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, like those rote success to success, no one remembers those. Like they just fade into obscurity. But it's like that one time Johnny did X, or Jen made that really terrible decision, and then like those are the things that we remember and we talk about. So yeah. So dice in front of or behind the screen?
Ooh, I've done both. For me, it's trust. To me, it's
Yeah.
a trust system. I mean, I think for Rat Queens, we had it so we had cameras on the dice boxes, which was really really fun. But for Mass Effect, since it's all audio, the only time we show each other our dice is if
Yeah.
it's like I got no 20 or
Yeah.
it's a one.
Yeah.
Other than that, it is trust. And I forget what GM I heard say this, but basically, like if a character is lying about their dice rolls, then that's their issue. Like that's
Yeah.
a them thing. We like I all I can do is take what they give me and we use that. So like you hope that nobody's lying, but if they are, that's their own thing.
Well, I
That's
mean, as a GM, do you prefer to roll in the open or behind the screen?
oh, for as a GM, oh, definitely behind a screen. Ha ha ha. Yes. Because I think it's really fun to not say what you roll and instead like not say the number that you roll and
Yeah.
instead describe it narratively. So you have your players like on the table like what? Oh, especially if it was like a 1 point difference.
Yeah. I used to roll behind the screen, and then we were playing a game, and this is like 20 years ago, and I think it was third edition, and one of the characters had a scroll that they were saving because they wanted to put it in their spell book, and it was Flesh to Stone, and but they were fighting this like epic, half fiendish, half dragon Hydra that just stepped over the wall, and like all 12 heads had just turned towards one of the players and like was getting ready to breathe. And like the player had to make the roll to even read the scroll, and then they had to make the decision to use it. And then like I was just kind of being a jerk, and I was like, I need like a 5 for this saving throw. Like, there's no way you're gonna petrify this monster. So I just dropped the die on the table, and it was a 4. So that city has this giant Hydra statue
Oh, that's
with
rad
the
though. I love
yeah with
it.
the flames like just about coming out of its mouth, and ever since then I just roll out and open, and and there's times where I'm like, oh, this isn't looking good. I don't know what's gonna happen, but then as a GM, like you're super excited because then the players like pull it out somehow,
Mhm.
and they change tactics or whatever. But like they can say like, this is what I'm rolling. I'm not helping you. Uh, you know, so I tend to roll in front of the screen for the players to see. But, it's whatever works for everyone's game.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Ultimately, it's like whatever makes you happy and your players happy and make a better, yeah, it makes a better experience for your players.
I will say though, like rolling in behind the screen, it does like it limits the amount of anxiety rolls you can do because the players are just used to you rolling in front of the screen for everything, and it definitely used to just like roll dice for no reason.
Yeah.
So they're like, "What are you doing back there? Don't worry about it. I'll let you know when you need to know."
I love and hate that, yeah, when other
Yeah,
GMs do that. Oh my gosh, or they're like, okay, I need everyone. You're just like, we're walking around. Okay, great. Can everyone do this check? Okay, what was your numbers? Awesome.
yeah.
Well, what was it for? I just need to know. And you're
Don't worry
just like,
about it.
oh.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have a preferred genre? Because it sounds like you've played them pretty much all of them.
It's tricky. I love the freedom of fantasy. I think fantasy you can be like I think now that steampunk's kind of come and its way into fantasy, I
Yeah,
love it because then you can be like, "Oh yeah, I have this and you can explain everything with magic.
yeah.
It's magic." That being said though, I do love like I'm a huge video gamer and so I love sci-fi video games and I really really love post-apocalyptic video games like Fallout. So I've really been itching to run a system in Modifius's Fallout. I think it's the Fallout Vault Dwellers RPG system, and I believe there's other systems out there that people recommend for Fallout games. I've done a
Mhm.
little bit of research. I can't name them off the top of my head, but yeah, definitely want to play in those. Also, yeah, I think oh gosh, what is it? Is it Wildlands? Is one or shoot, I forget what the big Western one is called. But I also really want to. I've
Oh,
never
Deadlands.
Deadlands, sorry, yeah, not Wildlands. Deadlands. I've dabbled, I've been a player in a Deadlands game, and I'm like, oh, I want to go back and really
Yeah,
play with that. And then Urban Shadows. I've always wanted to do a game in Urban Shadows. I haven't been able to do that yet because I love the whole mix of what if fantasy and monsters meets modern day.
yeah. I mean, we've done a little bit of that. A few years back, we were kind of like Ted had ran it, and we were calling it the Dresden verse. So it's like
Oh
we're
my
kind of
god.
using the Dresden Files as the backdrop, and playing urban fantasy, which was a lot of fun.
I think there's
And
just so many cool. I even played the oh gosh, I just thought of it earlier. No. The Jane Austen RPG.
oh yeah,
Good conversation, good society. Good
yeah.
society. Played that. I loved it. There's a whole epistolary section in that. So if you love it, we're doing epistolary storytelling. That one's a hoot.
So so we had done D&D in a castle before the apocalypse, and the co-organizer, she kind of was she was involved because her brother wanted to do D&D in a castle, and she had run these like Jane Austen events, and as well as done like fiction and stuff like that for it. So we've had her on talking about that kind of stuff, and the RPG definitely came up in that discussion. But I'm always curious about that because I'm like, well, what do you do in those kinds of games? You
It,
know,
it's very much like from a story because like that one specifically it's tricky. It's super fun storytelling wise, especially if you're like a huge Jane Austen fan or you just love Regency England. But it's always tricky in games where it's like each character has an objective and you need to do this to win. Because as soon as you bring that element in, it just becomes okay, who's playing to win? Who's
yeah,
like, I just want to go over here and do this because this is the thing I have to do and I'm going to win versus like who is trying to like use that to help tell a story because I think that's where things get tricky because you can have players who are like, I mean, I'm a competitive person. Sometimes there's RPG games where all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I want to be the number one Jane Austen character here. I'm going to beat all y'all. I'm going to just beeline my objective and just kind of story, this is what I want to do. And I think that can sometimes be debilitating to a story, especially in a game like that where it is so heavily narrative based. I think you just got to make sure that like this is a game for fun
yeah.
and don't get too competitive with your Jane Austen
I'm power
characters.
gaming the
I'm
Jane
power,
Austen
yeah.
system.
Like I am this character. I have to make sure I tell a rumor about this other character and get them to fall in love with this character. So you two are falling in love whether you like it or not. And they're just like, okay.
That's funny. So we are coming up on the hour mark. Final thoughts before we head on out?
I would say challenge yourself to try new games that you haven't ever played before. Challenge yourself to find new genres that you haven't played before. That's always really been something that has delighted me and has like made me a better GM and storyteller and player. And also too, like if you are a GM, like feel like I would say this to all GMs. This is a very big part of improv that I feel like is really, really crucial for tabletop RPGs. In improv, we have the phrase called yes and, where you say yes and to an idea, because that's what helps propels the story forward. I think it's really important for not only players to say yes and to the GM, but for the GM to say yes and to the players. So if the players are saying like, oh, I want this to be part of the world, the GM says, yeah, let's do it. Like, yes, and like, let's build that into the world. But also if a GM is giving you like a moment about your character, like something about your character's backstory, giving you a moment, it's also great for players to say yes and to that, because the GM's trying to make sure that like this is a really cool story and is incorporating these elements that you've put down. And so I've seen games where a player saying no to a GM has just like, oh man, just disrupted the storytelling like that, like a train on a stop.
There's nothing fun about no.
No, and I think if a GM say like a GM does have bring up something about your character that you don't necessarily agree with, I would say you can either negotiate it in that moment, like, yeah, I can see it kind of like this, and just kind of work together with them instead of being like, my character would never do that. Because then the GM will be like, okay, well, what does your character want to do? Because I'm going off of what you've shown me so far. So I think it's very much it's not just one person leading a story, and it's not just a bunch of people like telling a story to one person. The GM is there with you. You are all equals at the table. So remember that. And I feel like if you have that sense of mind, you'll find that your campaigns and your stories will be so much more richer.
That is excellent advice. Links to find Emily over on Twitter and also to check out Heroforge are in the description, and they will be in the pinned comments once this is no longer live. And also, we usually don't talk about politics here on the show, but hey, if you're in the US, go vote, do your civic duty,
vote,
and all
vote,
that good
vote.
stuff. If you have any problems, there's websites to help you, and no matter what they tell you, you have the right to vote if you show up before 8 o'clock. So vote. With that, until next time, stay nerdy.